Welcome to Rob Schmitt Tonight. This weekend, Giorgia Meloni shocked the world and put globalist liberals in the fetal position after Italy elected its first right-wing leader since World War II. Naturally, the comparisons to Mussolini have been everywhere. You should have expected that. But when you actually go beyond the headline and you actually read these articles, you realize the same desperate ideologues are up to the same old tricks. From USA Today, buried in the article, finally an explainer of why she's a fascist. Well, she still uses a slogan that was favored by fascists: God, fatherland, and family. Yes, that's all USA Today could come up with in their quest to label a populist Italian mother as the next Mussolini. Anything to distract from the real story of why exactly this woman won power, and that's what we're going to talk about. The fact that one of the most beautiful countries and cultures in the world is being destroyed by globalism, something that's happening in many different ways, but none is more obvious than the North African migrant crisis. Refugee camps all over Italy for years. We've been seeing this now, and it is not slowing down. Giorgia Meloni rose to power by having a very clear message that made sense to Italian voters and plenty of passion.
Migration Compact è esattamente quello che serve a chi ha utilizzato l'immigrazione irregolare in questi decenni per coronare il grande disegno della speculazione finanziaria di privare i nazioni e i popoli della loro identità, perché quando non hai più radici sei schiavo e quando sei schiavo fai gli interessi di Soros.
So you have a little sampling there of the fiery Giorgia Meloni. Italy's economy has been in the toilet for 20 years now. You probably don't know that if you just go there to visit, but there are very few good jobs for young people in Italy. The country is shockingly old because the youth all leave to find careers in other nations. The birth rate of this country has been in decline for 13 straight years. It's so bad that beautiful Italian towns are offering thousands of dollars to anybody who will just move there, just live there, and just pay taxes while you're there. Italy is an economic disaster, and the media still is simply aghast that Italians didn't simply vote for more of the same.
Voters in Italy tomorrow appear poised to make a hard right turn. The woman expected to become prime minister leads a party with roots in neo-fascism.
A far-right political party whose roots go back to post-World War II neo-fascists.
Meloni herself was a hardcore neo-fascist militant.
The most far-right government in that country since Mussolini.
Most right-wing government since Mussolini.
Same clowns, all reading from the same script. We know how that goes. We've seen it before. Yes, it appears Italy is on the verge of a fascist takeover. But what exactly makes the populist Giorgia Meloni a fascist? That's the question. She has almost nothing in common with Mussolini, who, by the way, was a socialist. The media loves to leave that part out when talking about that man. When you actually think about what fascism actually is, an authoritarian state where a dictator has full power over the military and most of the economy, forcible suppression of their political opponents as well, you see nothing of this middle-aged mom or of her party for that matter. In fact, you begin to realize the fascist comparison is simply made based on one policy, and that would be immigration. That's it. It's the same thing they did to Trump. Fascist now means anybody who opposes open borders. That's it. It also means that most countries in the world are now majority fascist by this new definition. You don't think your country should endure an endless flow of impoverished migrants and the despair and the crime that comes with it? You're now a fascist. Meloni, like most Italians, wants to protect one of the most beautiful cultures the world has ever known, a culture being eviscerated by liberal ideologues in Brussels who control her country. In the first 6 months of this year, Italy took in 34,000 African migrants. And it's not a very big country. This is what being a part of the EU now means. Angela Merkel's bleeding heart couldn't do what was right and prevent these flows years ago. Merkel would later even admit that she regretted what she had done, admitting that multiculturalism had failed. Italians simply want their country back. An incredible moment here at the EU headquarters in Rome. Take a look. You see here the EU flag being lowered at the headquarters. It would eventually be replaced by Italy's flag. Start thinking about what we saw in the UK not too long ago. Many liberals watch a video like that and they're probably in horror. They probably would call that an insurrection. But the truth is, it didn't have to be this way. Globalists had such tremendous control over Europe for such a long time, they finally jumped the shark. Had they simply been capable of resisting their most outrageous open border fantasies, just been reasonable on migration, reasonable enough to allow great countries to keep their culture, to control who enters their nation, Giorgia Meloni would have never been able to pull this off. The next stop for Italy could be following in the UK's footsteps, leaving the joke that has become of the European Union once their economy can handle independence. The EU is already threatening Italy, which is forming a bold new government in defiance.
We'll see if things go in a difficult direction. I've spoken about Hungary and Poland. We have tools if things go in the right direction. And people, as a body that is always, where always governments have to be accountable to, play an important role.
We have tools if things don't go our way. Continue to support our incompetence or we will punish you. Who wouldn't want to be a part of the European Union? What we're seeing in Italy right now is the beginning of a new era. The Europeans are waking up.